All right, here we go. I'm excited. All right, hey everyone. I'm Abby. This is the first of my Wednesday weekly um, Facebook Lives. I am new and excited to this. I've done them with my fellow sleep colleagues, but not to all of you. So a little bit about me. I am a pediatric nurse practitioner, and before that, I was a neonatal ICU nurse. I stopped my clinical practice 2 years ago, and I started my business as a child sleep consultant a little more than 1 year ago. I loved clinical practice, but the demands of working in American healthcare were just too much as a single mom. So I moved to Mexico a little more than 2 years ago with my two daughters, Calliope and Amelie. I am passionate about sleep for a couple of reasons. So the first one was when my daughter Calliope was just a tiny newborn. She was such a happy baby during the day, but then at the end of the day, she had that classic witching hour, and she was just miserable and screaming. And, of course, I knew about colic, but it just didn't fit for me. Like, I felt like there was something wrong. I felt like she was tired, and I just couldn't figure out how to get her to sleep. So I started reading and reading, even though I was so tired. And from reading all these books, I realized that I was getting her overtired because of what I was doing earlier in the day when she was still pretty chill. And so I put her on a strict schedule, and she just transformed into this like magically happy baby who never cried. And life was just so much easier for both of us. Like, I knew exactly what she needed, and she never cried. And then at about 6 to 8 weeks old, I put her on a feeding schedule, moving first to every 3 hours and then to every 4 hours. And lo and behold, she slept through the night. It was crazy. It was like I felt like I had like gotten like the answer book for the math test or something. I was like, this is too easy. And then but she was sleeping in a swing, which back then we didn't know that was dangerous. Please don't do that now. So then at like 3, 4 months old, I transitioned her to a crib, and I was super stressed out. I actually hired my postpartum doula to come over and literally sit next to me and just keep me company because I was so anxious about it. And the funny thing was, she didn't even cry. She just didn't sleep. And I was like frantically Googling, trying to find, like, what do you do if you're sleep training and your baby doesn't cry? Which sounds so ridiculous now, but especially as a nurse practitioner in pediatrics, right? But at the time, when you have a baby and you're tired, it's just really hard to know that you're doing the right thing. And then I sleep trained her again at about a year. Well, I know I did it earlier actually. We were sharing a bedroom because we had a 1 bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. And so I couldn't get her past like the 5 a.m. waking because we were in a room and she knew I was there and would wake up hungry. So then we did I tried Ferber first, and then I went to Extinction, and then that worked pretty well. And then we did it again at a year when we moved to a 2 bedroom, because she was like starting to backslide on the night feeding. So I've totally been where you are, and I get it. It's really hard. And then with my younger daughter, I put her on a schedule right away. Well, not right away. The first 2 weeks she was colicky, and that was really hard. And all the things I did with my older daughter didn't work. But then in about 6 weeks, I put her on a schedule. And actually, again, 8 weeks, we went to a 4 hour feeding schedule, and she slept through the night. And she actually completely self trained herself. And yeah, 10 weeks, she was sleeping 10 hours through the night. It was pretty awesome. So that's the first thing, is like, it was just so empowering for me to see that my kids could sleep really well if I just created the right framework for them with their schedule. And then the other thing was, when I went back to work, I saw how many of my patients are really tired. And I just kept reading more and more about the health problems that can be caused by sleep deprivation. And I also, even saw tired parents that like had never had good sleep habits. And I just became convinced that like the key to great health is great sleep. So And then I was working for a company called Hatch. They make the Hatch Rest that a lot of my clients use, and I was a health advisor for them on infant and baby child health, and I saw so many sleep questions, and I got really really interested in like the inner workings of sleep, because there really are some secret tricks to getting kids to sleep well, and it's really really hard to figure out what those are when you're really tired. So I just felt like I could combine my passion for child health with my passion for sleep to help families get the sleep that they need. I'm firmly convinced that great sleep makes for stronger family bonds. And I know a lot of families are really nervous that they will hurt their children through sleep training, that they'll be traumatized or something. And I've never seen that. I always see families are so much happier after they've done the work, and they say like, why didn't I do this sooner? Or like, this is the best money I could have spent, because their families are so much happier at the end. So today I'm going to be talking about how do I know what is the ideal bedtime for my child. And I still struggle with this with my own kids. I'm still shifting their bedtimes around. I actually just moved my 9-year-old's bedtime from 8:30 to 8 o'clock, and it's made a world of difference. I was waking her up for school before, and it's dark here. Most of the year, actually, it's dark here at 6, 6:30, even 7 a.m. So I was waking her up in the dark. She was cranky and whiny, and I was not in a good space when I had someone whining at me before coffee. So I moved her bedtime to 8 o'clock, and lo and behold, she wakes up on her own between 6 and 6:30 most of the time. Or if I do wake her, she's easy to wake up and really happy. So anyway, so here's how to know if your child's bedtime is right. So your child should be waking up at about the same time every day, weekends too. And I know that's a bummer for us parents, because we would love to sleep late on weekends, but it's really not ideal. It's really not ideal for you as parents, but you guys get to make your own decisions. But for kids, it's really not great to have their wake times, sleep times change very much day to day, because it does really throw off the body clock. So figure out what your desired wake time is during the week, and then plan that your child is going to wake up at about that time on weekends. If it's 20 minutes later, fine, but it shouldn't be 2 hours later. Your 5-year-old shouldn't sleep till 10 in the morning on the weekends. It's just not, that shows me that your child is still tired, is overtired. And then I think, the most basic thing is to just count back. Like, okay, if I want him to wake up at 7, what time do I need to put him to sleep at night in order to have him wake up on his own around 7 a.m. every day? So that's the most basic way to do it. And then after that, some signs to look for that your child is getting or is not getting enough sleep would be like, is your child hyperactive around dinner time or in the late afternoon, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon? If they're like the Energizer Bunny, just like running circles around the living room, they're almost certainly overtired. Overtired people produce a stress hormone, cortisol, that helps them stay awake, but it also makes them hyperactive. So most kids who are tired are not sleepy, they are hyperactive. Well-rested children, of course, they have energy and they want to play, but it's not crazy manic energy. So that is a big one to look for. Another sign of a child being overtired is night wakings or early morning wakings. So if you put your child to bed at 8 o'clock, your 3-year-old to bed at 8 o'clock, and he wakes up at 4 a.m., he's overtired for sure. So we want him to be waking typically between 6 and 7 in the morning is what's, I think, possible for most well-rested children. There's the occasional child that can sleep a wildly different schedule, go to bed at 10 at night and wake up at 10 in the morning, and that works for your family, great. But it's not the norm for sure. Let's see. If your child is hard to wake up in the morning, which is more common with older children, like school-age children, that's a sign that they're not getting enough sleep. It's not normal for, an 8-year-old to have trouble getting up at 7 in the morning. If your child falls asleep in the car at random times, like 9 in the morning. Well, not a baby, but like a toddler or preschooler shouldn't be falling asleep in the car at 9 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon. Um, Kids should really only fall asleep in the car if it's at a scheduled nap time or a scheduled bedtime. If they seem really cranky and just melting down, especially towards the end of the day, that is a sign of overtiredness. Another one is like being really bothered by teething. Parents often think that night wakings are caused by teething, but usually it's from being overtired. So signs that your child is well rested would be waking up on their own, even on weekends at about the same time, seeming pretty happy most of the time, being able to play independently, for a reasonable amount of time for a child their age. Um, Being able to tolerate separation for age appropriate amounts of time. Signs that your child is going to bed too early, which is less common, is they maybe have a really hard time falling asleep, but they're just chatting in there. They're not crying. Like if they're crying at bedtime, they're probably overtired. If they're like perfectly happy to go to bed, but just play for an hour consistently before falling asleep, it might be that bedtime is too early. If they wake up at 2 in the morning and play happily for an hour in the middle of the night, that's called a split night. It means that they've like used up their sleep need and they have to get tired again before they go back to sleep. If that happens consistently, that could be a sign that they are undertired at bedtime. Or if they wake up too early in the morning, but like they wake up at 5 in the morning, but they play happily for an hour before calling to you, again, that could be a sign of being undertired. The key thing here is that they are happy, they're just awake at the wrong time. So most kids under the age of 6 need about 12 hours in bed at night. It could be 11, but it's not going to be 9. So about 12 hours in bed at night plus naps if they are a napper, and napping needs change, obviously, as kids get older. So again, just to recap, your child they should fall asleep within about 15 to 20 minutes. You should put them to bed before they're cranky, before they're hyperactive. Usually when you first start seeing yawns, or eye rubbing or looking glazed over, that's the perfect time. And it doesn't mean you've done something wrong if it takes them a few minutes to fall asleep. Catherine, I see your question. Thank you, about your 11-year-old sleep needs. So, I think it's helpful to look at what peers need, but ultimately, like those are based on averages. So I would look at how your 11-year-old feels. Do they wake up happy? Do they struggle to, get up in the morning and go to school, whether that's at home or, in an actual school building? Again, like 11-year-olds, I wouldn't expect them to nap. So if he's falling asleep in the car or he's taking a nap on weekends, that suggests to me that he is not getting enough nighttime sleep. I'm a sleep lover. I think sleep is great for kids. It's great for families. It's great for parents to get a break. So I would keep moving his bedtime a little bit earlier, maybe every few nights until you see him waking up at his desired wake time without help from you. And for, an older kid, I think your son likes video games and stuff. I would encourage you to try to cut off the screen time an hour before bed. That will make it easier for him to fall asleep at whatever time you think is best for him. I hope that helps. All right, so some other questions that I received from parents is, and this goes back to what I was just talking about, what are the causes of night wakings and too early wakings? Those are typically caused by overtiredness. When the body is overtired, it produces a stress hormone, cortisol, that makes it harder for people to sleep. And so they tend to wake up during the night and too early in the morning. The other frequent cause of night wakings and early morning wakings is, oh good, I'm glad, Catherine. The other thing is negative sleep associations. So sleep associations that require the help of an adult for a child. So if you rock your child to sleep every night you can expect that she's going to probably wake up during the night and like after a complete sleep cycle and say like, wait, mommy was here holding me and now she's gone and I don't know what to do. So there are definitely positive sleep associations like using a pacifier, sucking a thumb, white noise, darkness. For kids over 12 to 18 months, a lovey in the child's bed are all super helpful sleep associations. That the child can reproduce on their own. That's a big thing. Is like, can they make this happen without your help? If yes, then it's a positive one. If they need you in the room, that's a negative sleep association. So those are the two main culprits of night wakings and early wakings. So you can work on those two things. If you have questions, definitely reach out to me. I do offer a free consult. There's no obligation. I'm happy to answer questions. Amy has a question about night wakings and wondering if it's due to teething. Well, there's an easy way to find out the answer to this. With your pediatrician's blessing, you can try giving some Tylenol or ibuprofen. I like ibuprofen because it lasts longer than Tylenol. Try giving a little ibuprofen at bedtime. And if Georgia sleeps through the night or it sleeps at least 8 hours without waking up, then you can assume it's from teething. But most of the time when we see these night wakings that we think are due to teething, it's due to overtiredness. So it might be that Georgia is going through a developmental leap right now. That's the other one that can cause night wakings. Is she learning a new skill? I don't remember where she's at skill wise, but like a big one is like when kids learn to crawl or kids learn to pull up or are practicing cruising, which is like walking, holding on to something. They can wake up during the night to practice their skills, or crawling. They get up and rock back and forth on all fours. So that's a big one for night wakings. And another way to know is if you go in the room and she stops crying and gives you a big smile, she's probably not suffering from pain. She's awake for some other reason. And developmental leaps absolutely cause an increase in separation anxiety. Oh, 9 months. Okay, yeah, so 9 months is a really big age also for separation anxiety. So again, if you go in there and she's like, hey, how are ya? Like that's probably a sign that she is missing you for some reason to deal with development or separation anxiety. And you can just say like, hey babe, nice to see you too, but it's nighttime, let's go back to sleep. And then thereafter, you don't need to keep going in. If you give the ibuprofen and she sleeps amazingly well, then you can assume that it's teething, and you can offer things for her to chew on during the day. She's probably an expert at finding those things anyway. And most babies learn to chew on their fingers. You can give her also, you can put a washcloth, get it wet and put it in the freezer and let her chew on that during the day, or you can let her chew on your finger and that should help. Usually teething only lasts a few days. So if it's going on longer than that, it's probably something developmental. That's a great question. Teething is a big one. All right, I'm gonna take, let's see, one of my other questions. So this is a more complicated one and could be for any age. So a parent asks like, I have to lay down with my child to fall asleep at night and it's just taking longer and longer and I'm feeling really frustrated. What should I do? So I think in this case, you really have two choices. You can change your thinking, number one, or change your behavior, number two. And no judgment from me, like do whichever feels good to you. So some parents say, my child is only young once, in 20 years, I'm not going to be laying down with her, in the college dorm. And I want to make the most of this time. And if that works for you and your family, like awesome, go for it. I totally support that. And it can also be like that works for us right now. And I reserve the right to change my mind later. And that's great too. I think you don't have to solve your problems for the rest of your child's childhood. You just need to know, like, what do you want today? What do you want this week? And as long as you're good with that, great. So if it works for you to lay down with them, awesome. And at some point in the future, if it stops working for you, then we can address it then. So decide, is it okay for you or not? If you decide that it's not, then we can change your behavior. But in order to do that, we need to change your thinking most likely, because you're probably feeling obligated, or you're feeling guilty, or you're worrying about abandonment. And those aren't thoughts that are going to serve you as a parent, because it's going to bring you to this like bad, anxious, guilty place. So what if we change your thoughts to, I love my child, I'm excited to spend time with him, but I don't want to do it at 9 o'clock at night. And then once you've got your thinking in a good, healthy place that works for you, then you can work on changing your behavior. So, and with an older child, 2.5 or up, there's a lot of things that you can do to help ease the transition for your child. And so with my clients, I talk a lot about like, let's make a sleep rules list that we put on the fridge, and you can have your child decorate it. Being really clear about your expectations in a positive, loving way. Like in the same way that you say, we don't have chocolate chip cookies for breakfast, we aren't going to lay down at bedtime anymore. And you can ask your child, like, do you want to lay down together before lights out? So they're still getting that connection with you. We also talk a lot about special time. So picking a time during the day that you are committed to giving your child 100% of your attention. And I know parents, believe me, like, you're spending so much time with your kids right now, like more than you ever imagined. And so this is different. Special time is like 5 to 15 minutes where you like set a timer, you put your phone down, and you're like, all right, kiddo, you're the boss. What do you want to do? Would you like to roughhouse? So this is a great one for kids, for helping them process negative emotion. And I was talking with a parent about this today. Just to be clear, a negative emotion doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It doesn't mean your child is under undue stress because of COVID, or you're, on an underemployment situation. Like, all kids have stress, just like all adults do. Somebody took their shovel in the sandbox, or mommy closed the door to go to the bathroom by herself. Like, stress is just a part of life. And so we can help kids learn to process that stress. And one of the ways that we can do that is through special time, where you engage in roughhousing, where the child is the stronger, faster, smarter one, and you're like the bumbling, inept, clumsy one. And kids love this. They think it's hilarious. And all that laughing actually helps them empty their, quote, emotional backpack. I got that phrase from Laura Markham, and I love it, because like, we all bring home our stress, and it's normal, and this helps them just release it. So the first and best way to help them process negative emotion is through laughter, not from tickling, but any other way, whatever gets them laughing. And then the second way is through tantrums, which we will work on seeing crying not as a problem, but just as a way to process big feelings. Oh gosh, I've lost my train of thought here. Oh, so yeah, so basically, if you decide you don't want to lay down with your child anymore, we'll work on nurturing your connection during the day, setting clear expectations, reading books or writing a book for your child about what bedtime is going to look like. All these things actually work really well together, and 95% of the time, families that I've worked with have found that changing their bedtime routine in this way, so that kids fall asleep on their own, is actually so much easier than they feared. And if you think, no, my child is like the strong, opinionated one, you've never met a kid like her. Well, all these families thought that too. So not to say that your child isn't different and special. I'm sure they are, but yeah, the advantage of working with older kids is they are verbal, and so you can explain to them. Of course, the advantage of working with younger kids and babies is they're getting their sleep that they need right from the get-go, which of course, like, we all want our kids to be well rested. So yes, you always have options if things aren't working for you. Don't feel guilty. Don't beat yourself up. Don't think like, well, this is my fault. I train them to fall asleep in this way. Like, no, it was fine. It worked for you before. It's not working for you now. Great, no problem. Let's change it up. Let's find something that works for your family. All right, well, listen, I'm going to jump. Thank you for those of you who joined me today, supporting me in my first ever Facebook Live. I'm super excited. I love what I do. I love talking to families. I think that is the consistent thing between all of my different jobs as a neonatal ICU nurse, as a nurse practitioner, and now a sleep coach, is that working with kids is really about working with parents and families, and I love it. I would love to hear from you if you have questions you want me to answer, if you want to set up a free chat. Send me a message through Facebook or on my website, which is peacefulparentsleepcoaching.com. I would love to hear from you. Bye.